This week's episode is sponsored by HCA Healthcare's nurse residency program. With graduation season already in motion, now is the time to plan for the next steps in your career, which is why I recommend checking out the nurse residency program with HCA Healthcare. HCA Healthcare's year-long nurse residency program is tailored to support new grad nurses and ease that first-year anxiety. Plus, HCA Healthcare gives you the opportunity to advance your career in one of the largest healthcare systems in the country. Don't wait. Nurses who are preparing to graduate and recent grads are eligible to apply to the nurse residency program at HCA Healthcare. You can learn more today at careers.hcahealthcare.com/residency. Again, that's careers.hcahealthcare.com/residency. HCA Healthcare is an equal opportunity employer. Now onto the episode. Welcome to the Nurse Becoming podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Guarnieri from the Resume RX, and this is the podcast that's dedicated to empowering and encouraging nurses along your path of professional and self-discovery. As a nurse practitioner, mom, and business owner, I'm on a mission to help you figure out how to leave your lasting impact on the world, all while bravely and fearlessly growing along the way. Join me for honest conversations and inspiring stories about personal and professional growth, all through the lens of nursing. Hello. Welcome back to the Nurse Becoming podcast. It's your host, Amanda Guarnieri. Thank you so much for joining me today for this episode where we are going to dissect how to answer the question, tell me about yourself, in an interview. I am excited to share this with you and also want to let you know that my new program, Interview Prep Magic, is currently open for enrollment. If you are listening in real time, I encourage you to go to theresumerx.com/interview to check out this program, check out the debut pricing, because we're launching this program for the first time. And as always, when I do that, I make sure that those people who are early to jump in on the bandwagon get an excellent deal. So I would love for you to learn more about that program, because I am so excited to be able to share with you not just, fragmented tips here and there as I've done on the podcast and on my social channels, but I've put together a really comprehensive program that's going to prepare you to be a more confident interviewer. You're going to know what to say, how to say it. And I think that you'll find that these skills transcend the interview. This is not just about being prepared for an interview, but just being prepared for confident communication in general at the workplace, outside of the workplace. So theresumerx.com/interview is where you can learn more about that program. And there'll be a link in the show notes, of course. And so today's episode is really going to be a preview of what you can find inside of the program. One of the modules has basically a breakdown of the most common and kind of most challenging questions that you might be able to expect in an interview. And what I do is I break down the purpose of the question, what they're really trying to ask, if there's kind of a hidden meaning behind the question, as well as some scripting and some frameworks so that you can really feel comfortable and confident knowing how to approach your answer to the question. So this episode here is a bit of a preview of what is in the lesson about this specific question, which is, tell me about yourself. And this might be the most common question that you can expect at your interview. If you're not asked this question, let me know, because I feel like you'll win some sort of prize for not being asked this question. And it's typically the first question that you're asked. So I don't want to say it's like a high stakes, high pressure question, because it's not. When you understand how to answer it, it's actually quite simple, but it is a kind of first impression type question. So keeping that in mind, yes, the interviewer wants to know about you. But the question is there a deeper purpose of this question? And, my answer to that is that this question is, like I said, really meant to make a first impression. And also, it's meant to help give some insight into your personality and what sets you apart from the other candidates. So they're not looking for you to rattle off the qualifications in your resume when you answer this question, because they've already looked at your resume. They've already decided that your resume has made you worthy of an interview. So you don't need to regurgitate what you've already said, but use this as an opportunity to really showcase who you are and what you bring to the organization as a candidate, and how you're unique, because we despite, common letters after our names and common degrees and common work histories, we are still all so different and all have so many different attributes and qualities to bring to a position that this question is really a great opportunity to make that impression. So I have a few recommendations when it comes to how to phrase your response to this question. And first, I think it's a great idea to use a particular phrase, or at least to commit to memory a particular phrase or prompt that will help you get started. And there are a few examples that I want to give to you that you can kind of jot down as a prompt so that you can decide how you're going to answer the question, and also commit one of the prompts to memory so that you don't draw a blank when the question is asked, right? I'm not a proponent of memorizing your answers to questions whatsoever, but there certainly is a use or a case for committing a certain prompt to memory. That way you can rattle off the prompt and let the rest of the information flow. So these 3 prompts, you can choose one of these. The first one is, I've always been the type of person who ... right? So fill in the rest of that. Or you could say, I've always been the type of nurse who. And what this does is it really starts off by revealing about your personality and about the type of person you are and what's important to you and your values, etc. Another option to this prompt would be, what you can expect from me is. And then that would be an opportunity to, talk more about qualities that you really want to lead with. And a third variation of this prompt is, I'm known as. So that, you could say, I'm known to my colleagues, or I'm known to friends and family as the person who's always helping. Or, I'm known as the mothering type in my friend group because I'm always looking out for everyone when I'm in a social situation. And that translates into the workplace because X, Y, and Z. And this persona is really innate to me, something like that, right? I'm just riffing. So you could say, I've always been the type of person who is quick to come up with a plan, or, strategic, or always been the type of person who is nurturing and etc. You would choose some of the best things about you, right? So like the first step before you plan this answer is to decide, what are you leading with? What is the greatness that you want the interviewer to know about you and to really commit to memory about you? And this may fluctuate and change depending on the role that you're interviewing for, right? So you may have a little bit of a chameleon factor and decide, okay, because I'm interviewing for this particular role and I know that they're looking for this type of person, I'm going to talk about this aspect of myself because I know it will be really important to them. And all of this is true, right? You're going to talk about things that are true. You're not going to make things up, but you can decide what things to talk about yourself depending on the role and the setting that you're in. Okay. Hello, friend. I am excited to tell you that enrollment for my new program, Interview Prep Magic, is officially open. I have listened to you, my community members, my listeners, and I have finally put together a comprehensive course that will confidently prepare you to rock your interviews. We always like to celebrate new things around here, which is why we are running a promotion for this program until Tuesday, June 14th to celebrate the launch. To access this super special launch pricing and be one of the first students of Interview Prep Magic, head to theresumérx.com/interview or click the link in the show notes. Again, that's theresumérx.com/interview. Now on to the episode. So using one of these phrases, I've always been the type of person who, or what you can expect from me is, or I'm known as, this will give a good introduction to you as a person and also help you be memorable and relatable. And it's just a good introductory sentence or two to, get this part out of the way, basically. So the rest of your answer, you can structure using a framework of present, past, future. Okay, I know that's not in order. That's why I said it wrong the first time. So present, past, future is the order of this framework that you can use to answer the rest of this question. So what I recommend you do is start with the present. So talk about the role that you're in now, or if you're a new graduate, you'd talk about that. So you would say something like, I'm currently working as a nurse practitioner in an infectious disease clinic, or I recently graduated with my family nurse practitioner from such and such university, and I recently took my boards, something like that. Whatever you want to talk about your current situation, or, if you've left a position, I recently resigned from my position as XYZ as I'm looking for, new opportunities or relocating, something like that. Then after you've taken some time to set some context about your present, I want you to transition to the past, where you'll discuss how your qualifications relate to the particular role that you're applying to. So this is when you would say, prior to working in, whatever role you've just explained, prior to working in this role, I worked in various outpatient clinics in the field of oncology for 7 years while working on my OCN, something like this, right? You can kind of talk about your qualifications and as it relates to the particular role. Right. So for example, if you're interviewing for an outpatient position that's primary care, preventive, you're not necessarily going to go on and on about your roles working in high acuity ICU, right? You can talk about the past, right? But I want you to try to extrapolate what you think is going to be most relevant and important and highest priority for the interviewer. Remember, you always want to try to get into the mind of the interviewer and what they're looking for. Okay, so we've talked about starting with the present, then you're going to transition to the past where you discuss your qualifications as they relate to the role you're interviewing for, then transition to the future. And this is where you will express your interest and your suitability for the role you're interviewing for. So if we want to use this example for, I mentioned someone who was working outpatient oncology or something. And let's assume that person's now a family nurse practitioner or an acute care nurse practitioner. They might transition after saying, prior to my current position or prior to entering NP school, I worked for several years in oncology, whatever you want to say here. And now I'm really eager to be considered for this role with your organization as an oncology nurse practitioner, because not only do I now have the experience as a provider, but prior to that, I dedicated my nursing career to the field of oncology, and I'm excited to transition to the role as provider or be able to provide more depth of care in this new role, something. Obviously, I'm just riffing. I did not prepare that in advance, which is fine, right? Like I don't want you to be giving prepared answers. So maybe it's helpful for you to hear me come up with things on the fly. And then you just kind of leave it off, but try to finish this answer to this question, basically talking about how you're suited for this role you're interviewing for, how you're excited about this role. That way, it kind of leaves a nice, bright, shiny ending and a good segue into talking more about that. So let me just recap for you these steps that we went over. So first, you're going to consider starting with a sentence after one of these prompts. I've always been the type of person who, or what you can expect from me is, or I'm known as. And then you can use the present, past, future framework to give about a 3 to 4 minute answer, maybe not even that long. We'll say 2 to 4 minute answer to tell me about yourself. So you'll start with the present, talk about your current situation, either your current role or your current, are you a new graduate? Have you recently relocated, etc. Then you'll transition to the past where you'll discuss your qualifications as they relate to this particular role. And then you'll transition to talking about the future, where you will express your interest and kind of demonstrate your suitability for the role that you are interviewing for. So hopefully this gives you a good framework to follow, and definitely, jot this down, practice this. Okay. Write some bullet points out for yourself. Don't write out the whole thing, but write out some bullet points and practice in a mirror or practice with a friend, because a lot of this is just the comfort of being able to talk on the fly and come up with answers on the fly, basically, which I'm trying to do. I can't think of another phrase for on the fly. So I hope that's helpful. And remember, this is a nice preview of one of the lessons inside of Interview Prep Magic, which is currently open for enrollment. This is a self-paced, go at your own pace type of course, because I know that interviews come up all the time. This isn't something that I'm going to kind of open and close and not make available to you. But since you would have lifetime access to this program, if it's remotely something that you're interested in, then I would definitely encourage you to check out the info page, see if it's something that you want to do, because this debut pricing, like I said, I always like to reward my early adopters, my folks who kind of jump in right away with the lowest investment possible. So theresumerx.com/interview will bring you to that page. So will the link in the show notes. And I am looking forward to being in your ears again next week. Have a good one. Well, that does it for today. Thank you so much for listening all the way to the end. If you have found today's episode helpful and you would like to support the Nurse Becoming podcast, I invite you to buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/nursebecoming. I appreciate your support. This helps me create more content for you to enjoy and benefit from in the future. Also, would you consider giving me a rating or review on Apple Podcasts if you haven't done so already? It will truly help other nurses find the show and know that it's worth listening to. For more information about this episode, as well as a place to submit your questions or suggestions for future episodes or guests, head to nursebecoming.com. I can't wait to connect with you soon. And until next time, remember, I am always rooting for you.